Finovate showcases cutting-edge banking and financial technology through a global conference series featuring short-form demos and thought leadership. Now, the conversation continues on the Finovate podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Finovate podcast. We've got a fun one for you today. We're going to be chatting with a couple of the scholarship winners who will be on stage at FinovateSpring coming up in San Francisco in late May. And joining me today, first out of the gate, we have Malia Lazu, founder and CEO of the Lazu Group and a lecturer at MIT Sloan. Malia, thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me today.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy that you're highlighting some of us who are coming out.
No, it's really exciting for us. It's a great way to make sure we're bringing new and engaging companies into the conference. To start, can you tell us just a little bit about the Lazu Group and what you're all about?
Absolutely. So at the Lazu Group, we transform people, places, and companies for a more inclusive world. And we really do that by understanding that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So not only do we help companies think through a DE&I strategy, not only internally, but how to enter new markets, but we also help them think through how do they change their culture so that it's more reflective for a 21st century workforce and customer base. So we love working in the financial industry. We also work with tech and real estate. And we really just love working with people who want to be responsive to building a new sustainable world.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. And we're happy to have you coming in on the social scholarship that we offer. I'd also like to talk a little bit about your background prior to founding the Lazu Group. Where did you come from? Can you talk about some of your experiences?
Definitely, definitely. I come to the Lazu Group with a couple of different career paths. I first started off as a community organizer when I was young, and I worked for Harry Belafonte for several years, working with at-risk youth, helping them start legitimate businesses. And it was in doing that work that I really realized the importance of the corporate world and the business world to invest in people who seem marginalized and invisible, but really have a lot of value. So I started working with companies who were interested in doing that. And one of them was a bank, and I found myself being a bank president and chief experience officer for Berkshire Bank, which allowed me to not only get inside and understand the levers of how you actually incorporate a DE&I profit strategy and not just see it as charity, but we were also the first bank in New England to be able to introduce community underwriting. We were able to bundle products for WMBEs. And we were also the first bank to do non-customer PPP loans during the pandemic. So my tenure there really showed me how much change we could make. And when I left the bank, I thought it was important for me to work with other financial institutions for them to be able to do the work that we did at Berkshire and learn the lessons that we learned together.
No, it's a really cool story, and I applaud your kind of commitment to the DEI landscape. I think it's something that's really excellent. And the fact that you have that experience coming at it from a financial institution background is really interesting. So that actually kind of takes me to my next question, which is, can you talk a little bit about the importance for financial institutions to be aware of the different holidays and commemorative occasions that you feature in the heritage calendar that you're working on? Why is this something that banks need to be aware of? Or maybe put another way, what happens when they're not aware?
I think we know what happens when companies, including banks, aren't aware, right? And that's that they show up wrong, right? It's a reputation risk to not know about other cultures and, to show up either tone deaf or, to ignore what's happening with other people around you doesn't flow the same way it did in the last century, right? And especially with financial institutions, trusted relationships are what we're trying to build, right? We want to bank your whole relationship. We want to keep you from cradle to inheritance, right? And hopefully keep your family generationally with us. And you'll only do that with your money if you trust a bank. And what begins trust? Me knowing that you know something about me, right? Me knowing that I can come in as who I am and I can feel that I belong, right? That if I'm celebrating a holiday, you may know about it. That you may know the importance of talking about my sexuality and my fluidity, right? When I see banks celebrating Pride, I know that I don't have to worry when I walk in that I'm going to, that I'll be sold some hetero story, right? That
Hmm.
they'll talk to me with who I am. So, we built this calendar because we really wanted banks and financial institutions and anyone really to have a chance to look at the rich tapestry of culture that we have in this country and have a year of programming of marketing conversations and know that you're doing it in a way with respect, right, with a curated list, with a friend, if you will, who can tell you how to do it respectfully and how to not burden your employees who may want to celebrate the holidays but not be burdened with helping their company get it right.
Yeah, you make a really interesting point here at the end, talking about burdening some of the people. Can you expand on that and say a little bit more about what the burden you're referring to actually is?
Absolutely. With all the companies that we work with, when we're working with, whether that's employees or customers, what we see is that it's oftentimes the marginalized communities that are being asked to do the work, right? So if the Black employees want to celebrate Black History Month, then it's up to them to come up with the programming. And it ends up really separating the holiday in a way that I don't think many people intend to do, right? But it
Yeah.
ends up putting an additional work on the people who are already marginalized, right? Who already had to fight for the holiday. And so that allows people to feel more comfortable that they're not going to be burdened, like, oh, like I make the joke all the time, like, hey, women, what are we doing for Women's History Month,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
it's like, what? Why are you asking me now? I'm busy doing the work that you pay me to do, right? And so, this allows an organization to learn in a way that doesn't put that extra burden. And that burden really leads to tension, right? It doesn't feel good to have to teach your fellow colleagues how to include you. It's much nicer when you can co-create a culture that just includes. And that's what this cultural calendar helps companies do.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting concept, and I think it's something which is really spot on, and that's why we're excited to have you up there on stage. I don't want to give too much away. You should come to FinovateSpring and see their demo. They'll be up on stage with a full 7 minutes to show and talk about the product in more detail. I do want to talk a little bit about just coming in on a social scholarship. What does it mean for you to be able to come to an event like Finovate?
I think social scholarships are so important because we were at Finovate last year, right? And we were speaking there, and I'm going to be speaking again. So don't only check out my our demo, but check out the other things we're doing there. And as an emerging company, you really try to figure out where are the best places for you to be, right? And where are you going to be well received? And I think this effort with Finovate this year, and long may it last, really helps companies who may not think that Finovate is a place for them, right? It may not think that Finovate is worth their time. It makes it feel more welcoming, and I hope that the people at Finovate understand that this idea of social scholarship isn't some scholarship kid badge, but really an opportunity to get to know, as you were saying at the top of your podcast, to get to know companies that you may otherwise not know because we still tend to be so segregated in the work and especially in financial in the financial industry. So I think it's a great time for us to come together and be able to see each other's value and the value we can bring to one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about connecting. And it's about connecting with people who can give you new ideas, new innovations, new ways to think about things. That's what we really strive for. Last question before we run out of time. What kinds of attendees are you looking forward to meeting at Finovate? Who would you love to see stopping by your booth?
I think the people, I'm excited about meeting are people who are really interested in how do we work for, the next 3/4 of a century to build a sustainable world.
Hmm.
It's not the 1950s, it's not the 1960s. We know so much now about what geopolitical events, have to do with our economy. We know what climate change and all of these things have to do with our economy. And so, what we hope to do at the Lazu Group is really help people who want to build a new way and a more sustainable way that's centered in equity for all of us that want to build an economy. So, if you're down with thinking about how we make the 21st century more sustainable than the 20th, please stop by. If you're interested in entering diverse markets, please stop by. We're looking forward to meeting as many people as we can.
It's going to be very exciting. Thanks again for the time today. And I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco.
Definitely, Greg. Thank you so much. Take care.
Continuing our conversations with our FinovateSpring scholarship winners, I'm pleased to be joined by Ima Rauf, co-founder of Pave.dev. Ima, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
So to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about Pave and what you'll be showing on stage in San Francisco?
Yeah, so at Pave, we're an analytics API. We help consumer lenders manage their credit risk. So our customers are really credit risk teams that use our solution to identify healthy borrowers, optimize credit limits, improve collections, optimize pricing, and more. And so our solution basically transforms financial data into predictive scores and attributes about an individual's cash flows and their financial profile.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space and certainly something that is kind of top of mind for a lot of financial institutions and the companies that serve them. How can we expand the pool of potential customers while also getting, financial services to people who've been kind of excluded from being able to take advantage of some of those? Can you talk a little bit about the hole in the ecosystem that you're plugging? What are you able to do that others haven't been able to do so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the way we see the world is that the last couple decades has mainly been predicated on traditional bureaus and FICO that's built on the bureaus. And that's worked great for certain segments of the population. But what's changing is that there's, all this new financial infrastructure that's being created. So companies like Plaid and MX who are on the bank aggregation side, and there's all these new payroll APIs and liabilities APIs, and all these new ways for consumers to not only access their financial data, but also connect that financial data directly with financial institutions. And so the whole idea of all of this data being generated and at a high velocity means that banks and lenders need to take a look at that and say, okay, maybe a consumer is more than just their credit score. That's the credit score is still meaningful, but what are these other elements about their financial lives to be able to answer questions like, what's the likelihood that this person will be able to repay a loan in the next, 30 days or 60 days? And how much new debt can this person actually afford to take on without putting them into a debt trap? And, things like when is this person expected to receive their next paycheck? And what's the most ideal time for this person to make a payment towards their loan? So all of those types of questions can now be answered when you sort of marry all this new data that's being generated and made more accessible with, sort of the more traditional sources.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about the types of companies that you've been engaging with so far? Are you looking primarily at banks, at fintech companies, or something totally different?
Yeah, so to date, we've been working with a wide range of consumer fintech. So companies building products that help people get access to their wages faster or help them get access to new types of loans, whether it's new, sort of debt consolidation or debt optimization loans and tools and things like that. And what we're starting to see now, a couple years into the company, is that banks and credit unions also have a real need for these types of analytics to be able to answer questions around how do you really personalize an offer based on more elements of the person's financial situation. Are they entering a new life stage? Are they accumulating a lot of debt where they might need a debt consolidation loan and things like that? So we're seeing across the board that not only consumer fintechs needing more analytics and more of a unified view about their end consumer, but also banks and credit unions needing the same types of analytics to be able to answer these questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Are you seeing, well, first off, I'll just say, what kind of response are you seeing from those two groups as you're starting to engage with them?
Yeah, so we are working with over 40 companies currently. And so we power a wide range of use cases, including helping reduce defaults, helping increase acceptances by looking, again, outside of the traditional signals and looking at the individual's cash flows. We help with improving collections processes and things like that. And what we're really excited about is this opportunity that banks are coming to us with on this use case of being basically the customer data platform for having a unified view of all of this data in one place, so that use cases like segmentation for offers and pre-qualification and all of the sort of personalization use cases that banks are trying to get into can be made possible with ease.
I think that last piece, the with ease, is something that's obviously really crucial here, making sure that the technology is accessible and is able to be used by people. Obviously, having it available is one thing, getting it actually to be used is a separate equation. Is that something that you guys have spent a lot of time thinking about, is how to make sure that you package it in a way that is accessible for anybody inside either those customer-facing or consumer-facing fintechs or financial institutions, anybody who might need to come into it? Because obviously a lot of them will be coming in probably with not a huge amount of tech expertise in terms of the people who actually will end up using the product on a day in, day out basis.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole idea of our product, so it right now the form factor is an API. So what that means is any developer or data scientist that has access to all the underlying data sources that they're working with. So let's say they have their own card product and they have all these card transactions, and then they have integrations with an aggregator like MX or Plaid or Finicity, and they also get access to credit report data and payroll information. What they're trying to do is say, okay, I have all these disparate sources of information about our end consumer, and they all have different challenges. They're all messy in different ways. And I want to get one unified view of that person's financial life. So I want to understand their income in one place. I want to understand the predicted income, their affordability, any risk signals I should know about, any life stage events that's happening in that person's life, and I want to see all of those signals in one place. So what they do is, in a matter of hours, they can start connecting all those different sources of data that they already have, and they feed that into Pave's platform. And what they get on the other side are all these analytics that they can then use to power this huge range of use cases that we were talking about. And so the promise of Pave is to say, okay, instead of having to build out all these thousands of data pipelines yourself and hire a whole team of data labelers to make sure that the data quality is good, and instead of putting your precious engineering and data science resources to extract analytics and predictions from all of this data, we abstract multiple levels of all of those things, and we say, okay, passes all this messy disparate data that's hard to unify, hard to understand, a clean picture, and we'll give you that clean picture on the other end. So you can plug it right in and serve user-facing functionality, serve risk models on the credit risk side, serve personalization models for offers and things like that.
No, it sounds really cool, and I look forward to seeing the demo itself on stage in San Francisco. I think we'll leave something for that. I do want to quickly ask a couple of questions. You're coming in on the Female-Founded Company Scholarship, which is a new program that we've started to offer this year to help make the show accessible to companies that maybe traditionally wouldn't have been able to come to the event. Can you tell me a little bit about what it means to you to be able to come to an event like Finovate?
Yeah, first of all, I think this program is just so amazing. I think for somebody like myself, where I don't come from a banking background, I've never worked at a bank. It's hard for me to understand, how do I even connect with the ecosystem and figure out how do I meet people that do work at banks and are thinking about these problems so that we can, talk about our solution and also learn about the problems that exist. I think what's amazing is that the whole idea in my mind of, the future of fintech and why there's so much excitement in the space is that there's a huge diversity of founders, including people like myself, who are trying to figure out how do you create the next, decade of solutions that can reach people that look like me. And so being able to work in collaboration, trade ideas, be in the same room with folks who are, at the forefront of building these solutions, not just at other consumer fintechs, but also at banks. I think that's what Finovate means to me, and that's what the scholarship, I think, unlocks.
That's excellent. I mean, certainly that's what we hope the event will be, a gathering place, a place where people can come together and connect with each other. And obviously, the more diversity we can bring into that conversation, the better suited everybody will be, better able to manage their customers' expectations, to find those new ideas. So last question for you. What kinds of attendees are you really hoping to meet at Finovate next month? Who are you really hoping will stop by your booth?
Yeah, I'm really excited about meeting folks who are, deep into risk models. So folks who are on the data science side or risk officers, underwriters, as well as people who are really thinking about how to leverage machine learning and AI into some of the kind of initiatives around, personalization and underwriting and credit risk and fraud risk. I think anyone who's excited about the possibilities of creating new products, leveraging more data to be able to do that and reaching new audiences is who I would love to meet.
Excellent. Well, there should be a few of those types of folks in the room. I look forward to seeing you on stage and watching the demo itself. Anybody who's interested in learning more about what Pave.dev is doing, check us out in San Francisco, May 23rd through 25th for FinovateSpring. Emma, thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me today.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Greg.
The Finovate podcast is produced by Informa Connect in association with Provoke.fm Media. Check out Finovate.com for information on Finovate's upcoming shows and to learn how you can get involved. The discount code Finovate Podcast will save you 20% on tickets to all of our events. And you can email us at info@finovate.com for information on sponsoring, speaking, or demoing. Thanks for listening.